Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial for an automatic sugarcane farm design that I came up with. This design is very compact, efficient and stackable. In contrast to the traditional automatic sugarcane farms, the pistons for this one are on top of the sugarcane and pressed down instead of to the side. This means the sugarcane can be planted in a very efficient way, so that for every one water source block there are 4 sugarcane around it, as opposed to the original design for which for every water block there is only 2 sugarcane. This design is extremely customizable, so you can decide how many layers you want and also how big each layer is. So first things first, you have to decide the dimensions for your farm. This is a really customizable design, so you can really pick any dimension once it's rectangular or square. So once you have these dimensions, call one side X and one side Y. This will just make it easier for explaining in the long run, because I'll probably be using different dimensions for my farm to you. For this tutorial, I'm going to choose 9 by 9, so my X is 9 and my Y is 9. So for the dimensions you've chosen, your farm will fit inside a bounding box of X plus 4 by Y plus 4. So you should keep that in mind. This design is split up into 3 parts, the first being the collection system, the second being the sugarcane area, and the third being the redstone. So let's start with the tutorial. So first things first is to make our collection system. So make a square with the dimensions X plus 2 by Y plus 2. My initial dimensions were 9 by 9, so the dimensions for this is going to be 11 by 11. When you have that built, just build a 1 high wall all the way around. So at this stage, you should decide where you want your output to be. It can be in any corner you want, but I'm going to choose this corner over here for this tutorial. So I'm just going to put a chest for my output. You don't have to put the chest in yet, but I'm just going to do that, and then have a hopper in the very corner, and then place a powered rail on top of the hopper, and then rails coming out from that. So place rails all the way along so that they curve at the edge and come back, so that there's a rail on every block. So you should have something that looks like this, and once you get to the very end at the last 2 blocks, destroy the very corner one, place a redstone block, and then place 2 powered rails on those 2 blocks. So now you need to figure out where to put your powered rails so that your cart goes all the way to the end and back. So always come 1 rail out, and then on the 3rd rail in you put a block of redstone and the powered rail. This is just so that when it comes back it makes sure it goes all the way into the edge. So place your hopper minecart on top of this corner powered rail where your output is, and then place a button somewhere to power it just for testing, and press this button and your minecart should go off. So once you see the minecart starting to slow down, that's when you know you need to place a powered rail. So wherever you want to, just destroy a block, place a block of redstone, and then a powered rail on top of that block. Then just bring your minecart back to the start and press the button again, and then do the same thing. So placing the powered rails this way is a bit tedious, but it's more efficient because you'll save on powered rails. If you don't want to do it this way, if you're just not arsed or something, then a general rule is that it's about every 20 blocks you place a powered rail. It actually depends on how small or big your design is, because the smaller it is, the more frequent your powered rails need to be, because when it clips into the wall, that's when it slows down a lot. So whichever way you place the powered rails, just once you have all of them in, just have a test run to make sure the minecart goes all the way to the end and all the way back. So once you're satisfied with this and your hopper minecart goes all the way to the end and back again, then you're ready to start part 2, which is the sugarcane area thingy. So first things first is you make a 3 high wall out of any block. I'm using glass for this, but you can use any other block if you want. Just make sure that it's a full block and not something like a glass pane, because that will decrease the efficiency of the farm. So it should look something like this now. For this next part you can either use grass, dirt or sand. I'm going to be using grass, but it's completely up to you. So come to the very corner where you started and come 1 block diagonally, and then place the block of your choice above that block. Now make a 1 high platform of this block with the dimensions X by Y, and do it so that there is a 1 wide border of air from the platform to the wall all the way around. Once you have that platform placed, it is time to place your ice. And the pattern for this ice is actually, it's not complicated, but it's kind of tricky. So I'm going to try and do my best to explain this, but once I show how it looks you should be able to catch on. So come to your starting corner and destroy the very first corner of the platform and place ice there. Now go 2 blocks in front of that ice and 1 block to the left, and that's where your next ice will be. Also go 2 blocks to the left and 1 block back, and that's where another ice will be. And it doesn't apply for this ice, but for this ice it does apply. Also go 2 blocks to the right and 1 block up, and then place an ice there. So just continue that pattern all the way along, but only place an ice block if there is at least one adjacent grass block. So if an ice block is supposed to be out here, then don't place it there because there's no adjacent grass blocks here. So once you're finished, you should have something that looks like this. Once you get a hang of this pattern, it's actually pretty easy to follow. It's just a bit difficult to grasp at the start. So before you move on to the next step, I advise that you check every one of your grass or dirt or sand blocks here, and make sure that there is an adjacent ice block to each and every one of them. If there isn't, then you messed up the pattern somehow, and you should probably just rip it all out and try again. So now you need to melt all this ice. So take a block that emits a light level of 14 or above, so jack-o'-lantern, glowstone, torches, or beacon or something, anything that emits light enough to melt ice. Just place it on one of the grass blocks all the way around so that it reaches every single ice block. But whatever you do, do not place any of the blocks on top of the ice blocks. So then you just wait for all the ice to melt. So once you've waited for all the ice blocks to melt, you can remove all of the light sources. At this stage in the build, you have to be very careful, and I mean really careful, because you could mess up the whole build just by updating one of these water sources. But if you follow this tutorial exactly step for step, you should be okay. So just be very careful and make sure you don't update any of these. Before you place all the sugarcane here, it's a good idea to build the platform above it first. So choose anywhere actually where there's a grass block. Make sure you don't pillar up beside or on top of a water block, because it would update it, and it's probably easier to build from a corner for this. So I'm going to choose this corner here. So go up 4 blocks here, and then build a platform with the dimensions x by y in the exact same position as this platform, but elevated 4 blocks. But when you're building this platform, whenever you are directly above a water source block, just place a different block into the platform, just so you know what blocks are directly above the water source blocks. Doing this is actually really important. It will help you greatly in the later stages of this build, and if you want to stack this, it is vital that you do this. Now inside the sugarcane area, you can clearly see where you need to place a piston, and you only need to use normal pistons for this. You don't need sticky pistons or anything. So just place an upside down piston against all of these, and there's no need to place a piston above these blocks because there's no sugarcane below them. This is also a good opportunity to light up your pad here, so I'd advise placing glowstone in these gaps here, just so that mobs won't spawn here, in case you have any mob systems in the area that will decrease the efficiency of it if mobs can spawn here. Now it's time to place your sugarcane, so just place a sugarcane on each one of your grass / dirt / sand blocks, and you should be able to place it on every one of them. If you're not able to place a sugarcane on one of the blocks, then you've done the water pattern wrong. So once you have a sugarcane placed on every one of your grass blocks, then you are finished with part 2 of this build, and it is time to move on to part 3, which is the redstone. Also, I just realized if you're doing this in survival, you'll need a way out of here. I advise going to where there's a water source at the wall. Do not update any of the adjacent blocks to this. You can destroy these 2 wall ones, and then you can swim up out of here. But do not destroy this block, or place a block beside this water source. Before you start the redstone, just place a ring along the edge of the pistons here, and it has to be a non-transparent block. If there's glass here, then sugarcane will glitch through and your farm will be less efficient. So for the redstone of this, the input block will be this block here, and that's the adjacent block to your hopper minecart at the very start, probably where you had your tester button for placing the powered rails. So destroy this corner pillar here and make a torch tower all the way up. Build your torch tower up to this layer here, and you'll have a turned off torch. So then make a 1-tick pulsar. You can use any one you want, but this one is probably the most compact that I've seen anyway. So like that, and then connect it to the platform here. Next, place redstone here and all the way on all of the blocks that have pistons underneath them. You do not need to place them on these blocks because I already know there's no pistons underneath them. Now you have to make sure that a redstone signal is reaching everywhere, so take a lever and place it on the side of this block here and power it, and then make sure that the redstone signal is actually reaching all the redstone dust, and as I can see, it's not reaching here, it's just reached the limit. So I will come to the closest one of these blocks without a piston below them. I'll take a comparator and I'll place a comparator facing away from this thing, so it can be either like that or like this. So you can't use a repeater here because a repeater will loop back into itself and keep it constantly running, but a comparator won't, it'll just extend the signal. Now the very last thing to do is just place an extra ring of non-transparent blocks all the way above here. And you need to do this because otherwise sugarcane items will glitch up through the ceiling and actually come up onto the redstone, hence decreasing the efficiency of the farm. So this is actually pretty necessary. So now your farm should actually be fully functional. If you power the input block here, you will see that the pistons get a 1-tick pulse and destroy the sugarcane blocks. No items glitch up through the top, and the minecart hopper goes around and collects all the items. So the minecart returned, and as you can see, the sugarcane are collecting in our output chest. So now that the farm is fully functional, you can decide what type of input you want for this farm. You could make it semi-automatic, so you just periodically manually press a button, and that will set off the farm. Or you can have a clock that automatically harvests the sugarcane after a certain amount of time. Or you can have a daylight sensor, so that it harvests at a certain time every day. Basically what I'm trying to say is be creative with this input because it's very customizable design. Just do whatever you want with it. It doesn't need to be anything I said even. Now I will go into the stacking of this farm. If you don't want to stack this farm, if you're just happy having it as one single unit, then you're done now. You don't have to watch anymore. But if you do want to stack your farm, there are a few important things that you need to do. So I'll go through them now. So first things first, you do not have to have any air gaps in between the two farms after you're stacking them. This is something that makes this farm very compact if you want to stack it. But if you are stacking it, you need to replicate this pattern on the ground above for your collection system. When you do this, you should have something like this, where you see exactly where there's redstone below and exactly where there isn't redstone below. This is actually really important to note because when you're placing the powered rails for the collection system, you need to know if there's redstone below because you do not want to be powering it with the redstone block. So when you see it slow down, go to maybe the one before it or the one before that even, and place your block there and powered rail. And do that all the way along. If you don't want to do it that way, then you can always just count 20 or so blocks and then the nearest one to it, just place the powered rail there. So this block right here is 20 blocks away from that powered rail, so I'd probably put the next powered rail here, or you can even put it on the one before that, but it's 20 or so blocks, so I'll probably be able to make it there. Also, it's probably worth noting, you can actually place powered rails along any of this edge here, or this edge here, because as you can see there's no redstone below. You should be careful with this edge though, because you do have this one redstone dust here, so it wouldn't be a bad idea marking that off. But you shouldn't actually need a powered rail on this edge anyway, other than this one. And once again, it's really not a bad idea to overcompensate, because once you have a roof on this, the minecart will actually move slower. So at this stage it needs to get to the end at a very good pace and back again at a good pace. For a central collection system, all you have to do is come underneath here and just dig straight down from this hopper and you'll reach that hopper there. Obviously there will be a minecart here, but for placing it you'll need to take the minecart away and then place it back. And then just place hoppers all the way up and then they'll connect right to this hopper. This is really compact and it means that all of your drops will congregate at your initial output chest. So everything is the same for this after the delivery system, so once you've built all that, you can link the redstone up so that it fires in sequence. So you come to this block here with the unpowered redstone torch, and you place the torch on the side of that, and then blocks here. The amount of blocks you place here are kind of up to you because this is the amount of delay you want, and I think about 5 repeaters is enough delay. Like, you don't need that much, that's way over the top, but just have some delay at least, so that you don't have thousands of pistons firing within a 5-second period or whatnot. So place your repeaters here, all the way along, block, and then another block, so that it goes into a torch here, and then a block on top of the torch, so you're getting the signal here, and then repeaters again, all the way to there, so it would be one less than the amount you put here. And yeah, the delay doesn't matter, as I said, it's just up to you. And then put a torch here. So this is the only redstone that's different in the whole machine. It's just so that when you press this button, the system will fire off and collect, and then after 20 ticks, it'll set off this system. So you can treat this like your input block for the first system. So just place a redstone torch against the side of it, and you're at the exact same position as you were here. So for how many layers you want, just simply copy this design all the way up. So as you can see, the pattern repeats. So for how many layers you want, it doesn't matter, just repeat the redstone and it'll all work in sequence. So that is the end of the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed, I hope someone found this useful, and I hope you've learned something.